Well, let me give you my take on Chud here, and here's what I think. And I want to go back to the press conference when Jimmy Haslam and Joe Banner decided to get rid of Pat Shurmur and Tom Heckert, which we all knew was going to happen from the day they took over. And here's why I think some fans, and I think it might be 50-50 on whether they like Chudzinski as the hire. But let me give you this take on it. I think what the Browns did in that initial press conference, they made me feel like they were going to move mountains. They were going to do whatever it took to get a big-name head coach, whether that was Chip Kelly in college, Nick Saban in college, or somehow they would pull a miraculous feat and they would get Bill Cowher to come out of the broadcast booth or Gruden to come out of the broadcast booth. Of course, Cowher's not in a broadcast booth, but you know what I'm getting at. The bottom line is they're both on TV. They both love their jobs. But I walked out of there thinking that Jimmy Haslam, with all of his money and being this new owner, was going to convince someone like that to come to town. That he had a guy in Joe Banner that was successful in Philadelphia that got it done. He had all this money, and they were going to do whatever it took to land one of these guys. I mean, sitting there watching them, that's what I thought. When I was in that press conference, I did not think they were going to hire a guy who has never been a head coach in the NFL. He's an offensive coordinator, and they already did that with Pat Shurmur. You got the feeling after that press conference that the Browns were going to take a different route, that they weren't just going to do what they have done in the past. And I think to a lot of fans, that's exactly what they feel right now. They feel like the Browns are taking the same route that they have done in the past. Pat Shurmur was an offensive coordinator, and Chudzinski was an offensive coordinator. But here's the thing, though. I think that, and I don't want to use the overused phrase, light at the end of the tunnel, but maybe with Chudzinski, there is the light at the end of the tunnel because you have a guy that's going to be hungry. You have a guy that is going to work hour after hour. I mean, this guy gets no sleep. And the other thing, too, is he is going to assemble a coaching staff that I think is going to be pretty darn good. And we're going to talk more about that here in the next couple minutes. But you have a guy, and obviously he's a guy that is a Browns fan. I mean, you heard him the other day talking about he's eaten dog bones before. And he turned the TV around in Toledo when he sat outside to pretend that he was in the stadium with his family and friends because he wanted to feel like he was actually there. His family has a bus that they painted orange and brown, and they tailgate, and they do all this stuff. So, there's no question about it that he sold Haslam and Banner. And I think the other question that fans have in this hire is the simple fact that they hire a guy that they just contacted on a Tuesday. They met with him on Wednesday, hired him on Thursday, okay? And they didn't go and interview a lot of these coordinators that are right now coaching in the NFL playoffs. And they didn't go and talk to Bruce Arians. I don't have a total problem with that, but you have the offensive coordinator with San Francisco, Roman, who, if you watched that Niners game last night, wow, was that offense incredible. I mean, so they passed on the opportunity to meet with some of these guys, and they didn't interview Lovie Smith. But you know what? I'm maybe okay with that because, Chud's going to come in here and he's going to want to prove himself. And he obviously has a plan. But here's the key. I'm telling you, Chud, and I'm not talking to myself here. Chud, I'm telling you that you have to watch what these teams are doing now because I think the NFL, it's changing. I mean, it used to be a run-first league, and obviously you have to be able to run in the NFL to get it done. But, man, you look at Kaepernick on the 49ers and Russell Wilson, even though they lost today Seattle, and RG3, and the names go on, and you sit here and you wonder, can Brandon Weeden get the job done? And ultimately, that's the point. Because guess what, everybody? I don't care who Chud is. I don't care if they hired a big, quote, name and made a big splash. If you don't have a quarterback that can win, if you don't have a quarterback that can do what these quarterbacks are doing now, you cannot win in the NFL. You have a couple, and we're going to talk about this with Scott Petrak. Yeah, you have Flacco, who's a drop-back type guy, and he gets it done and obviously got it done in Denver. And you have Matt Ryan, but boy, I'll tell you, Matt Ryan almost lost that game today for the Falcons. But it just seems like you just sit there and you wonder, is Brandon Weeden, is he going to be the guy that can get this done? So, that's my initial thought on it. I'm going to tell you right now, give Chud a chance. And I really believe that you can, and I listen to a lot of radio talk in Cleveland. I do. And I read all the articles in the papers. And that's another thing, okay? Not one article. Scott Petrak will tell you. He didn't write it. Nobody wrote Rob Chudzinski is going to be the next head coach of the Browns. I feel like I wasted hours and hours of my time reading all these articles because Chud was in none of them. But all these other candidates were, and they would tell you who's going to be that next. That's what I love about the media, okay? I'm not going to sit here and tell you for sure Chud is going to work or he's not going to work because I don't know. And anyone who tells you that they do, they're lying. You know, you listen to radio shows and you hear, well, I'm going to be the first to tell you Chud is not going to work. And I know that's what they get paid to do, and you have to have entertaining radio. I get that. But you don't know if he's going to work. You don't know yet. You have to watch and let it play out. And let's go back to Andy Reid, okay? And that's another thing, too. And, you know, if you're a true Browns fan, you already know this story, but you know Banner hired Andy Reid, okay, at Philadelphia. Nobody knew who Andy Reid was, okay? And he comes in, and now he's one of the best coaches in the last 15 years, right? Okay, so you didn't know that, though. Do you think anyone was predicting that? No. So maybe 3-4 years from now, we're going to be sitting back and saying, man, Chud really is the guy. Just like in New Orleans, they're saying, man, Sean Payton, I mean, he's the guy. I mean, you just don't know. You have to make your name somewhere. So for anyone that tells you he's not going to do it, you just don't know yet. All right, let's dive into some things here before we take your calls.